Good evening, everybody. My name is Ayub Kader, and I've been coding games for over 2 years now. Since everybody here is familiar with IT and is in the IT field, I'm assuming that everybody knows what is Visual Studio and how to how to create a program using C# language or programming language. Today we're gonna be learning how to create a project in Visual Studio. We're going to learn some basics of using Visual Studio, and we're going to learn how to code Tic Tac Toe using C# language. I don't believe you guys coded Tic Tac Toe before. And if you guys not familiar with Tic Tac Toe game, please check out the handout that I just gave you. All right. Share our screen. Well, first thing we're going to be creating a Visual Studio program. Waiting for it to start here. We're going to create a new project. We're going to select the Window Forms app, hit next, name our project, Tic Tac Toe. Maybe nicer than that, but that looks good for me. Pick the place where you want to have your project saved. Right. And then hit next and create. It's going to take a minute to initialize and create the project for us. All right. First thing, we're going to be creating a menu strip. And we're just going to place it there. First thing, we're going to do File. And perhaps under File, we have New Game. And then Exit. Maybe you can also add an About, maybe in Help. Help. And then under that, we have About. Let's go ahead quick and code this About one. So it's going to be, we're going to create a message box. It's going to be showing the message box to the user saying version 1.01 and then created by Ayub. Right. Next we're gonna be all right. Next we're gonna be adding the buttons. So we need 9 buttons for this. So I'm gonna edit the first button and then I'm gonna copy it and paste it 8 times. So we're gonna be editing the size. So it would be 75 to 75. So it's a square. And I'm gonna be editing the font size in the properties lower right. So if I check the properties of the font, I'm gonna give it a size of 28. I'm gonna also empty the text. And I'm going to rename it, or in fact, I can leave it button 1. I'm gonna create a 8 other copies of this button. So I'm going to Control C to copy. And Visual Studio is very nice. It has this feature of alignment once you're pasting something. So that's really cool. I'm going to do that quick. All right, we're going to resize our form. And that looks good. Okay, first thing, we're going to create an event. So if you hit event here, and then we're going to name it, it's going to be a click event. So let's call it click button. And we're going to give, we're going to use the same click events for all buttons. So Control C and Control V it everywhere. All right, now we have created the click button method. We're going to just create some global variables such as a Boolean for player turn. So it would be player turn, and we're going to initialize it to true. And then we're going to also integer. We're going to create a Boolean for turn count, for count turn. And we're going to initialize that to 0. All right. The reason why we created one event is just because it's much easier to have one event that controls all the buttons, and depending on, like, we're going to be controlling that by the player turn, whose turn. On that time, we're going to be placing X or O based on that. So first of all, let's get that button criteria from the sender. So we're going to create a new button. We're going to call it button, and then it's going to be equal sender. But since sender is an object, it's not a button, we're going to cast it to a button. Here, that's nice. Now we can use our button. What button would be whatever the user clicked right now. So we're going to be checking if player turn. So it means if player 1 is playing, button.text is going to be equal to X, else button.text is going to be equal to O. That is nice so far. So now if player clicks, depending on who's the player, it's going to be placing X or O. Next, after we click, we don't want to click again on that button. So we're going to disable the button. There is a property called enable. We're going to set that to false. Yep. We're going to set that to false. And then we're going to increment our turn count to add 1 because we already clicked. Next thing we need to do, we need to create a method that's going to be checking for the winner. So we're going to create a private, and this method can be returning a Boolean. So if there is a winner or not, we're going to call it check for winner. And in Tic Tac Toe, as you see in the handout, there is 3 ways of, well, there's multiple ways of winnings, but we can divide it into 3 categories. So the first one, it would be horizontal check. So horizontal checks, and then vertical checks, and then diagonal checks. So the first one is going to be checking if button 1.text is equal to button 2.text. I'm just going to copy these two, make our life easier, and button 2.text equal button3.text. And we're going to do one more and button1.text dot enabled, in fact, is false because we want to make sure that at least one of them is disabled. And then we're gonna, well, we can create a property or a Boolean object. We call it winner and we give it false because that's the value in the very beginning, it's false. There is no winner. And now winner equal true if that happens. We're going to be repeating, making a little bit of repetitions here. We're going to say else if button 4 equal to button 5, and then button 5 equal to button 6. Then we're going to be checking based on button 4 if it's enabled or not. We're going to do the same thing again. And we're going to be checking button 7, button 8, then button 8, button 9, and then we can be checking if button 7 is enabled or not. We got our semicolon here. Okay, we're going to be returning winner. That's why it's yelling at us. So we're going to be returning winner. We're going to keep doing else if, this time the vertical, so basically going down. So button 1 should be equal to button 4, and then button 4 should be equal to button 7. And then we can be checking button 7 or button 1, in fact. Again, we're going to do that again. So it would be button 2 for the second row equal to button 5, and then button 5 should be equal to button 8. Then we can be checking button 2 if it is enabled or not. Else if, once again, it's going to be the third row, so button 3 equal to button 6, and then button 6 text equal to button 9, and then we can be checking button 3 if it is enabled or not. Last but not least, we're going to be checking the diagonal. So basically, button 1, if its text is equal to button 5, and then button 5 if its text equal to button 9. And then we can be checking if button 1 is enabled. One last check. We're checking if button 3 is equal to button 5, and then button 5 is equal to button 7. Then we can be checking the enabled on button 3. And then we have a winner, and we're returning that winner. So next we're going to be calling that method and checking if we have a winner or not. So if check for winner, no, not check for illegal stuff. Check for winner method. If it is true, then I'm just going to create a string here. We call it winner, and I'm going to initialize it to nothing. We're going to be checking if the player turn. So who is winning actually at that time? Who's playing? So if player turn is basically true, then it's winner equal to player 1. And then else, if it's false, winner is going to be equal to player 2. All right. Now, next thing we need, in case they draw, so else, if there is no winner, we're going to be checking for something. If the turn count we have, if it is equal to 9, then we're going to message box show, and we're going to say we have draw, no winner today. All right. So that is good. Next, if the players, somebody won and didn't click on all buttons yet, we're going to be creating a method that's going to be disabling these buttons. So I'm going to call this method, well, let's say private void, since it's not returning anything, disable buttons. All right. In this method, we're going to be checking for each control. So it would be for each control, and I'm going to name it control, in controls. So all the controls in the form. We're going to be creating a new button. And I'm going to go to button. We're going to be casting that control into a button. So it would be control, cast it into a button, and then that button dot enabled is equal to false. So it's going to be disabled. And because not all controls in our form is actually buttons, we're going to have to create a try function. So try all this so we don't meet an exception. Then catch. If we catch an exception, we're basically going to do nothing. So nothing. All right, that seems good. Disable buttons. We're going to call our disable buttons once there's a winner. And then we're going to obviously send a message saying that there is a winner and who's the winner. So message box that show, and we're going to say congrats. Plus player or winner. The reason why we're writing plus is because it's not the same. We're kind of printing a variable, not a string. So it's going to be saying who player does one. And in the very end, let's not forget to change the turn. So after every click, player turn is going to be equal to not player turn. So that's going to change the turn, the click. Next, what we need to do is we're going to create a new game button. We're going to implement that. If we hit create new game, player turn is going to be true. So it's going to go back to the first player, no matter who played last in the earlier game. And then turn count, we're going to give it to 0. And then we're going to do the same thing we did here. So I'm just going to copy this method quick. But instead of disabling, we're going to be enabling all the buttons over there. So, and also we're going to be, so for each button, that text is going to be equal to nothing. So it's going to be empty again. So initializing buttons. All right, our game looks good. Let's try testing this. No, oh, there's some column expect. Try this again. Okay, let's grab this. Player 1-1. We go to file, create new. Let's try to make nobody wins. It's a draw, no winners today. That is awesome. So if we go to help about, it gives us our message box. And if we exit, oh, we didn't implement exit. So let's go ahead and quickly implement the exit. Very easy. It's only one line. So we double click on exit. We just wait for a second. And it's going to be application dot exit. And don't forget our two parentheses since it's a method. We're gonna run it again and see if we can exit now. So if we hit file exit, yay, we can exit. Nice, very nice. All right. Well, by now, I hope you guys learned some stuff today. So I'm just gonna go over our points that we mentioned at the beginning. We learned how to create a Visual Studio project. We learned some basics of using Visual Studio, and we learned how to code Tic Tac Toe Game in C# language. I'm gonna be testing you guys to see if you guys fell asleep or not yet. So, well, question for you. Why are we using this try catch statement? Correct? We're using this try catch statement because there is multiple controls in our form. There is not only buttons. So when we try to cast this control into a button, it's gonna throw an exception. And for that reason, if we have this try catch, we can say that here a message, we can print a message or something, but it's not gonna throw an exception and the program is gonna keep running. You guys seems to be attentive, and you guys read the handout requirements. So good job, you guys passed this class. I wish you fill in the survey for evaluation. After this class, you're going to be shortly be receiving an email with a link to the survey. Please fill that in and return it as soon as possible. Do you guys have any questions? If not, thank you very much for attending this course, and I will see you next time.